This is part B of this week's Ask the Cowgirl. If you missed yesterday's videos, we covered some really good questions about living with kids, getting kids involved in the homestead, living in small space with lots of kids. We also talked about credit cards again, so make sure to check out the A part of this series. Now we're going to get into some questions about our breeding strategy with goats and other animals too. How do we select and plan for breeding? What else?
Milking, A2 milk, sheep's milk, goat's milk.
Lactose intolerance.
What's better?
Yep. So, shall we dive in?
Yes.
Let's get to the first question, which is about our breeding strategy.
For Philip.
Our cowgirl is pregnant with our 5th child. We obviously take breeding strategy very seriously here.
All right, for Philip. I'm most curious about breeding animals, pigs, goats, sheep on the homestead level. How do you keep the bloodlines healthy? How many females per male? How do you separate them to avoid accidental breeding? Keeping multiple separate flocks to rotate the males every few years? Cost of keeping? Okay, these are a lot of questions. This is a lot of stuff, especially if you're talking about 3 different species.
You get one, Philip. I'm cutting you off.
And you want to keep this a closed loop system, you know, sustainable. Whatever you do not try to do all 3 things at once. That is a recipe for disaster.
Not sustainable.
Honestly, we've tried it. It is not good. Start slowly. Okay, so let's pick one of these things. What do you want to do, goats or sheep? We've never bred pigs. We just got feeder pigs because pigs are not an easy thing.
I think Philip's question, if we want to zero it in. Okay. And this is another good example of, like, if you're going to ask questions for Ask Homesteady, try to give us one good, clear, with lots of background. Basically, Philip wants to know our strategy. How do we make decisions for breeding? Whatever the breed is, it's all kind of the same strategy. Whether or not we choose to breed certain animals, like we will probably never breed pigs because it is not as easy as goats. We would still go by the same principles of selecting and choosing how to breed those animals.
So start right off the bat with start with the best you can buy. No, I don't mean like show lines, but start with a breeder in your area whose animals are healthy, they breed back easily, and they give birth well easily, take care for their young easily, right? You want to keep it very, if you're going for sustainability, you want to keep it just as low maintenance as possible.
We were talking to Kay's aunt just the other day, and she has much more experience in breeding livestock than we personally do. And she was talking about how long it takes to see the results of your breeding. And essentially, whether or not you've passed those good genetics down, it really takes 2 generations. So the 2 cows that you choose to breed then have 1 calf. And you won't really know what genetics you've passed into that calf until that calf breeds, and then it breeds again, and you can compare and say what bred true here. So honestly, Philip, in the beginning, we choose to let people much more skilled than us do the good breeding, and then as Kay says, we pay for that in good quality livestock. So the first tip is let people like her aunt or people with much bigger herds and much more years of experience do really good quality breeding. Because
they do. They take it serious. Beautiful livestock out there. Then they're breeding for, you know, they're working on parasite resistance.
Oh, yeah.
They're working on ease of calving, size of animals, how, you know, their maternal instinct, which commercial operations maybe haven't zeroed in on as much. So go to your breeder, look at the animals and ask them the questions about their breeding stock. And it won't be cheap. This is not something you can get by, you know, buying a pig on Craigslist.
We have completely stopped, and I am confident to say 95% we will never ever buy another animal on Craigslist.
So I better stop looking?
Unless we found, like, hey, this goat from this particular line just happened to be sold on Craigslist. But for the most part, we don't look for livestock on Craigslist. We look to people who are good quality breeders of good quality livestock, and we pay way more money than you will ever pay for a goat on Craigslist for a goat like this. But then you know you have good genetics to start with if you are going to start breeding.
Start there. And just start with one species, really.
Absolutely, because, yeah, it's too much.
I always say you never know how much you don't know about something until you get into it.
So now here's a good point. You found Ladybug, who was good quality from a good breeder. We didn't know anything about breeding cows, but they had it handled. You've had a year now where you've worked with this cow, you've learned about cows, you've read about cows, had mentors in this process. You learned before you got her. Now it was time to breed her, and now it's in our hands. Now we're going to breed a cow. At that point, our strategy for choosing a potential mate for her, how do we select who, and like same with our goats, how do we then select who we're going to breed to?
We seek out the traits we want. With Ladybug, it wasn't an easy decision, and we ended up picking kind of two different bulls, and we're going to see what happens. Were we looking for a smaller size? Were we looking for bigger production, larger teats? You know, it's something that I think evolves. No, we didn't come into this saying, I know exactly what I want to happen here on our farm with our animals. It's a learning experience. And we'll see how it goes for us this year, see what we think of the calves we get from the bull we used. And
we really, again, won't even know what genetics we've passed on.
Oh no, not until
we
like
see that
if they have a heifer
calf.
And she starts milking, like what do you know about the milk production until you see her milk?
I interviewed the man behind Kiko Goats, who created that line of Kiko Goats, who now
in New Zealand.
In New Zealand, Kiko Goats started back in the 80s. Garrick Batten is responsible. Him and his wife and a group of his core people made the Kiko Goat, and he said to actually breed animals and to get a new breed, to work with a breed like this, and to get a good line, you need a huge pool to work from, because to get that many to breed true, you just need to have so many to select from. And so it's not really something as a homesteader you will ever do
and
well.
You need to be kind of ruthless in your culling.
Yes, that's what they do.
If you're getting into that sort of,
which as a homesteader
operation.
You probably can't be ruthless in your culling. And you know, you probably are going to be settling more. But if you start with really good livestock.
And he's talking, he wants to keep this a closed loop to be sustainable.
Closed loop is, you would need so many animals to have a closed loop.
Because you need to be bringing in the new genetics pretty regularly.
Okay, so let's talk about that. This is like a part B to this question. Yeah. There's a lot here, which again, well, we'll give you two for the price of one. We're not mad at you, Phil. Stick around. Subscribe. The closed loop sustainable breeding, we could breed Quinn to Lacey until Lacey dies, or Quinn dies, right? We could continue breeding those two. So let's say Quinn was our buck.
Quinn to Gizmo as well.
Quinn to Gizmo. There are lots of people who will line breed the father to the daughter. So even Lacey's daughter, if she had a doe, could then be bred back to Quinn. But at that point, usually the line breeders will stop with either breeding to the daughter. Do they go to the granddaughter? I don't know. Don't quote me on that because I don't know a ton.
We're not.
But the point is, at some point though, that line, those genetics, you have to stop rebreeding into your herd. And that's where you need such a big herd to continue this closed system. You shouldn't even make that your goal as a homesteader.
And this even becomes an issue as far as like some of the heritage breeds we see that are in such small numbers in this country that the gene pool is so small, they're running into issues with it.
Yeah, you're better off as a homesteader making it the goal not to focus so much on the closed loop sustainable for the breeding purposes and for genetics. That would be better off if you're a larger operation, if you're going to become a breeder of this animal.
So as a homesteader, you know, establish what your goals are. Do you want to have like a large flock of sheep because you want to market lamb? Do you want to sell goat's milk? Like what are you trying to accomplish here? I always say that. What are your goals? And we've been on goat dairy farms where they keep, boy, eight bucks. And they keep them in these enclosures all year round. That's where their bucks live, to keep them separate. And then they have a very, very detailed notes of who everyone's been bred with, you know, because they're growing their goat herd. As a homesteader, is that what you want to do? Is that what you want to do?
That's a full-time, that's a large dairy, like not large, it's not like a factory. Yeah. It was one family run, but a large dairy farm. That's all they did. Yeah, all dairy. Goats. So they could spend all day caring for 8 or 9 different bucks and managing that breeding. If you're just a homesteader, and I say just, meaning like if you're doing this part-time just to feed your family, you probably can't keep that many bucks. Kay's on what she does with her bucks. She gets one in, he takes care of the whole herd, and then he's done. Then he's on to the next place. So she either leases one or she resells them and keeps bringing in fresh, new, good genetics.
Now, switching that out. What you're going for is providing for yourself. You want your goats to kid every year so you get milk. You could keep 1 buck, 2 does.
Yeah.
Infinitely.
Yeah, and that's kind of our plan now.
Yeah. Valerie, you're getting Quinn back.
Right, no, Quinn's coming back. We're keeping Quinn. Unless you send $15 million. He's a nice goat.
He is a nice goat.
He's a great, we really like Quinn. So if you're watching, Valerie, maybe we will put him up for ransom.
Good genes.
Our plan is to keep Gizmo and Lacey and keep rebreeding them as they get older. Same with Ladybug and Luna, keep rebreeding them.
And we'll see where our direction heads. We may end up keeping a bull ourselves.
Yeah.
We may end up keeping, you know, a buck ourselves. I don't know.
It changes a lot, and it sounds to me like, I'm thinking, based off Philip's questions, it seems like he's at the very beginning of his journey. And so what we would say is, if you're at the very beginning, focus on one, find really good quality stock, and then learn a lot from the breeders of that particular line and that stock.
Because you're going to spend a lot initially for stock and infrastructure and for any of these.
Yeah, and good quality stock with the good matching infrastructure, you'll never regret that. You're never going to say, unless you get a really good quality goat and you get it home to your homestead and it gets struck by lightning, then you might regret it, but insure that bad boy. All right, Philip. Philip squeezes another question in here, but we're not there yet.
No.
Let's talk about more breeding. Speaking of breeding your goats, this one is more about the actual process of breeding and 2 Nubian goats and a buck. Look at that. So M. Buff wants to know, they're a new goat owner. They have 2 Nubian does and a buck. They live in the city and don't have many around that they can learn from. Way to go, getting goats into the city. That's awesome. Husband works full-time, and she does part-time. Makes it difficult to observe the goats to check for signs of heat. So
they've been with the buck since November. Although I've seen him try to mate, neither of the does seems interested, and I don't know that he's been successful. Outside of an ultrasound, how can I tell if they're pregnant? Like, she can't do the milk test. Also, how can I tell if they're in heat? Also, I know that goats have specific breeding seasons, but I've read that Nubians might breed year-round. What is your experience? These are good questions. And it's funny because we have kind of the exact same situation right now. We've got our 2 does and our buck with them.
And we have not observed a breeding yet.
No, not yet. We haven't observed a heat or a breeding. So signs that your goat is in heat? You know.
They're more jerks than usual.
Loud.
Somebody said I'm getting soft on goats now because I tell everybody to get them instead of sheep. I still think goats are gremlins who are going to make your life way more difficult. But I gotta say, these Nubians have kind of softened me on the goat thing. They are a really nice, I like these Nubians. They are very nice. And they're a really good tool to have on this homestead. As far as heat goes, they're going to get louder and noisier. They're probably going to fight more. They are going to be more like the gremlins that they really are. Their tails are going to be, you see a lot of tail action. Yep, lots of flagging, they call that. Yeah. So these are signs that they could be getting ready. It also they could be in heat for 6 hours. It could be that short of a time period. So if you're working, your husband's working, obviously you're not out there staring at your goats to see if they're coming into heat. Yeah, and neither are we. We don't get to sit out there and watch them all day. No. We have not yet seen, Quinn's been with him for what, a week now? Well, we've had him here for a few weeks. Right, but he's been actually But because of the cold weather, we had to, kind of move everything around in the barn. We needed space for the cows, so we put Quinn in with the girls. Even though we hadn't planned on doing that, we did want to keep them separate so we could watch the breeding. We wanted to have good data on when to expect. Right, when to expect We didn't want to have a video in 5 months called "Wasn't expecting these baby goats," but now we will.
Yeah, but
surprise in the barn this morning.
What I'm saying is, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
And honestly, in your situation, since he's been with them since November, my guess is they've been bred already.
They will not seem interested if they've already been bred.
No, because they're not coming back into heat. It's too late now. What we've been doing with ours is watching for kind of signs that they've been bred. So checking under the tail for any kind of, mucus or remnants of the semen that have been deposited. We think we saw that on Gizmo. That would be a successful breeding. We put it down and we watch.
We should talk about that too, why we chose to have Gizmo bred. Oh,
Yes.
that's in a video next week.
Okay,
Never mind.
so
We'll talk
that's
about that
next
next week.
week.
So all you who are like, wait, you bred Gizmo? That's coming.
We'll explain. In your situation, I would say draw some blood. The two of you could do it pretty easily. I say this, we've not done it yet for the goats, but
oh, this is true.
But they're easier to handle than a cow. So, and you take it from the neck. So there are a lot of videos that I've been watching that show you how to draw blood from a goat, and send it in, because you'll read online, you'll read on blogs all these ways to tell if your goats are pregnant. They're getting fatter. It's kind of hard to tell if your goats are fatter from babies or they're just filled up because they've been eating, and they should have nice full round bellies. They'll start producing milk. We had a goat that was unbred that was producing milk, and we thought for sure
fatter.
Yeah, we thought for sure she hadn't come into heat. She looked fatter. The vet came out the week she was due and said, I can't really tell. I think I feel kids in there, but I can't tell. She had milk. We were sure this goat was bred, and she wasn't.
Yeah, she came into milk. She started like having milk, and it just was like,
yeah,
any day now. And
yeah,
then
even
any
the
day
vet,
now.
so short of like having a vet out to ultrasound, which could be costly depending on where you are, just draw some blood. It'll cost you probably under $10. Ours cost to send in the cows about $5.50.
And look for any extension service that you can work with. If you just search on Google blood test for livestock, I just saw recently somebody is selling the same kit that we got completely for free from the DHIA for our cows. They're selling this kit for like $40, and all you're doing is the same thing. No,
usually all you need is get a syringe with a needle, and just, your vet may even have it, just a tube that you can put blood into, wrap it up, put it in an envelope, and ship it off to one of the labs that do the goat blood testing.
It's a little scary.
It can seem intimidating, but
if you stick around, you'll see us doing it in probably a couple weeks.
And it's so much better than waiting. If yours were November, December, January, March, April. Waiting until April, being on pins and needles, trying to figure out if they're actually bred or not.
Yeah, learn if they were or not. And if they're not yet bred, let's get to the second part of this question. Our experience is very limited with Nubians because this is the first time we're breeding Nubians. But I have goodish news for you. Kay's aunt, she has been breeding Nubians for a long time. She says that the Nubians that she's worked with can be bred year-round. She was not concerned about getting she has does she's still planning on breeding. She hasn't even brought over to Quinn yet.
It's the end of January.
And it's the end of January.
So for most dairy goats, say Alpines, Sonnens, they're seasonal breeders, which means they're going to breed from fall until usually January at the latest.
Now this is not always everyone's experience with Nubians. You were reading some people don't have this.
Some people, their Nubians have been seasonal breeders. Some people say because of the origins of Nubians, some have had them where they're not seasonal breeders. They breed year-round. It might end up being specific to your Nubians. We'll see with our girls what ends up happening if they end up taking in January, which would traditionally be late for a dairy goat to be bred. Just checking to make sure we're on.
Our computer was about to die.
Oh.
The plug was coming out. Hope that helps, and
Did we? So
I think we nailed it.
Experience. All right.
Getting a handle on that. Send us a picture of those cute does in April.
Next breeding question, Renee asks, as someone who knows squat about livestock, I'm just curious. With this calving event, she's talking about the PA farm show we were at where they had the cows giving birth in the calving corner. Would so many spectators be overly stressful on the cow and not good for either the cow or the calf?
Yeah, we had one really angry comment about this. We talked about how if you're going to the PA farm show to check out the calving corner because you can see cows, if you catch one, giving birth. And we're fortunate enough to be able to see that right here in the homestead, but not everyone's going to be able to have that chance to see it. And it really is cool to see, especially in person. It was really, even at that event, I still got all excited for it. And I've already seen it, but like, this was great to see again. And one person, not Renee, somebody else who we didn't share their comment on this channel, they were very mad.
We're not, what they did, these were dairy cows from a dairy, so they're handled regularly. At the dairy, I would imagine what they would do with their cows is if they're close to their date to calve, which they would keep track of, and watch the cow for signs of calving, they'd move her to a calving area, and the farmer would be there watching her. He'd maybe have a couple of farm hands there to watch. He wanted to see progress in the cow, so he's timing her. So at the farm show, there are more people watching. The cows are moved there earlier in the week, so they've been there 4 or 5 days by the time they're actually calving. If they were really stressed out, the calving, you know, animals can stop themselves from giving birth if there's enough stress.
They actually, the person who was doing the announcing there mentioned that cows specifically, because they are a prey species, they can shut their labor off if they're overly stressed.
Yeah. We were encouraged in the audience to keep quiet, not to look at the cow directly in the eye. So, you know, don't act like prey animals around her.
Predator.
Don't act like predators around her. She also was still right beside the herd of cows she was moved in with. So there were a lot of familiar things. She's familiar with the farmer. She's familiar with the cows that she was right next to. She wasn't moved far away from anybody. She was comfortable. She was eating. She would lay down, chew some cud, get up, smell the other cows. Everybody, all the cows seemed very comfortable there. Now, of course, it's not going to be the same as like giving birth out in the field, but that wouldn't have been great for her to do in January anyways outside. And this wasn't a beef cow they plucked out of 1,000 acres and threw into the middle of a convention center surrounded by 1,000 people. So honestly, I don't think it was an unhealthy or stressful situation for either the cow or the calf, especially the calf. Like,
oh yeah,
what do they know? They're like, okay, this is normal.
And this is one of those examples, and I'm not talking about Renee here. Renee asked very nicely. She said, I don't know squat about livestock. But again, we did have some super not happy comments on that one.
Like it was our fault we did.
Yeah. This is one of those areas where sometimes people think they know better than a professional dairyman about how he should be treating his cows. And people forget that the farmer, who is a professional dairyman, he is a milk farmer. He had the one that was giving birth. There were like 4 or 5 from that same farm who that exact day were going to be calving. So who knows how many head of cattle he has back at the place. These are his livelihood. And little known fact, dairy farmers don't make much money off their milk. So is this dairy farmer going to risk one of his good cows and future cows' well-being? Well, one of his future cows, is he going to risk their well-being by putting them in a situation? Dairy gets one of the biggest animal rights activists hammer the dairy world. They think they know better than the man whose entire livelihood evolves around the health and production of these cows. And it's good to, even in the slow food movement and small farm, remind ourselves, large agriculture, farmers who have lots of head of cattle and run dairies, they're not bad guys. They love cows or they wouldn't be doing it. And they care for their cows and the well-being of their cows. No dairyman who was worried about a specific cow would bring it to that, you know, that facility to calve.
No.
This is their livelihood. They're not going to risk an asset that's worth thousands of dollars and time too, just to show it off at the fair.
And honestly, I don't know for sure, but my guess is they're not bringing first-time heifers in to calve there at the arena.
Probably would have already known, because who wants to be the farmer who has the you know, problem cow on the floor?
No, and I appreciated it as a cow owner, because I got to see up close and personal, like, them checking on the cow.
Oh yeah.
Him helping her with the calf. That was valuable teaching and learning experience for me that I really appreciated. So
we've never seen a cow pulled in person, and you know, hopefully we never have to do that. But we've talked about the natural myth a lot. The fact that our cows are out in pasture and they get to eat grass and live under the sun.
Right, it doesn't mean something won't happen when they go to give birth.
Yeah, it doesn't mean one day we won't have a hard birth. And now she got to watch a professional who, like, before he had to pull this calf, he like blew an animal balloon with the glove.
Right,
just
he
to
does
show,
this
like,
regularly. It's okay.
Yeah, he like blew an animal balloon, waved at the kids, then put the glove on and delivered a calf. Guarantee if we had to deliver a calf, we wouldn't be like, hey kiddos, boop. So it was a really great experience, and it's just a great lesson that us small-time homesteaders and small-scale ag have a lot to learn from large-scale agriculture and the professionals who've been doing it a lot longer, way more than we have. And it was a really nice experience, and you should check it out if you can see a live calving demonstration. Really cool. When we're talking about cows and calving, we talked recently in one of our videos about observing a bleed off while we were trying to decide whether or not our cows had conceived. And once in a while we get asked this question. Annie Oakley, hey Annie Oakley, she wants to know what the heck is a bleed off, and she's a pretty good shot, so I'd give her a good answer if I were you.
Good answer. About 1 to 3 days after a cow is in heat or ready to be bred, the vessels that have grown because of the estrogen in her system, some of them, they're regressing. Some will rupture and go into the uterus, and they'll come out with the mucus. And you'll see it on her tail, sometimes on the ground. That's called a bleed off. That's a good indicator that ovulation took place. A lot of the time with Ladybug, that's how we knew that she actually came into heat. Doesn't mean we caught her, but we knew she had come into heat. Means you missed it usually. So with Luna this past time, we noticed her in heat, bawling, mounting things. And then a few days later, we noticed her bleed off. So that was an indicator for us that she wasn't bred and she came into heat.
So that's what a bleed off is.
That's what a bleed off is.
These are the terms. You're going to learn all these terms when you get into the cow world. Bleed off, and then another one is let down. And Philip, who already got a question in today, but he's going to get two because we got the cowgirl here. He had a milk question about letdown. So first explain, what is a letdown, and then Philip's question.
Letdown is when the oxytocin in the cow's system, this hormone, helps her to release the milk into her udder. And then you can milk it out. So this will happen with stimulation, like the calf licks or bunts the udder to get that letdown to happen. So if you don't have a calf, that's one way you can start that letdown process. It only lasts so long. And Philip asked,
if you use a pump system
or say a milking machine, is the letting milk down still an issue? Yes, it is still. You still need a letdown. Even for women who are breastfeeding, you need a letdown to get anything out of your pump, which is why some women can't pump any breast milk. They let down for their baby, but their body just won't do it for a pump. So you do, even if you're using a milking machine, you do still need that letdown, which can be arranged if the cow's holding up for you by a little bit of oxytocin in the bloodstream to get her used to letting down for you. We calf shared, so we kind of used Luna to induce that letdown for us.
And sometimes you had to milk and it didn't feel like you got a letdown, and other times did.
That's calf sharing.
Yeah, not a science. My poor wife right now is double checking her research data to make sure what she said was perfectly accurate.
No, I'm just making sure that I don't like to give any misinformation. So.
When you make videos on YouTube where you were talking about like things that are factual two things are going to happen. You are talking live on camera, you're not reading a script, you will mistakenly say something wrong, you will say something vague, you will say something people misinterpret, and then 30 people will comment below like, you're an idiot, blah, 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 blah. And like you become, right now where Kay's like, oh, I have to make sure, did I cover it all? Like, so.
I just want to make sure I'm being thorough,
yes,
but without too much.
Yes.
Like just a general
if you
explanation.
Want to be able to ask the cowgirl questions, just be nice. If we say
just
something,
going for general explanations.
You know, yes, general explanations. I am defending you. I want you to keep doing this, and if people are mean in the comments, you ain't gonna do it. Next question is about milk as well.
Yes.
And
now this is something. This is a deep, deep hole you could dive into.
Is this another Philip question? Philip, like, you got a lot of questions answered today. Congrats, man. There were a lot of good Ask the Cowgirl questions.
These are Ask Homesteady questions, just about milk.
Yes.
Philip, here's that not all cow milk is equal. Preferred type is A2, A2, whatever that means. How is goat or sheep milk different from this A2, L2 milk? And is it better for people who are lactose intolerant?
I want to throw a caveat out there while you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to do a caveat too, so go ahead.
When it comes to nutrition and health, we always tread very lightly because, first off, like, studies on nutrition and health are constantly changing. Scientific facts that people will no doubt comment below arguing what we say are really not concrete facts like how gravity works. They are based on studies where it's hard to get really good data when you're dealing with living people and their digestive systems. So, we're not going to tell you that like A2 milk is better because that's like really hard to prove.
Right. The claim is that it's a protein that makes it's easier to digest. Some people find this to be true. Some people say it's the pasteurization, homogenization of milk that makes it harder for people to handle. Some people can't do cow milk at all. Goat. It's try and see what works for you.
When it comes to intolerances, and like, I've suffered with gut problems for decades of my life. I've had intestinal GI stuff, and what we have always found works for us, the thing that we do, is just an elimination diet. Get it all out of your system, let the inflammation die down, and then slowly reintroduce things and see if they affect you.
And nothing has affected you.
And yeah, if they affect you, doesn't matter what anyone else says. If you do an elimination diet and then you take the first day a sip of milk and suddenly you got a stomach ache, like, then you don't need a doctor to tell you not to drink milk. Just don't drink milk.
I
have no problem with doctors, but just like, you know.
The thing is, see what works for you.
Yeah, see what works for you.
Is your stomach upset after you buy a gallon of milk from the store? Try some raw milk.
Sure.
Does that still bother you? Maybe try A2.
This might be one wild week of diarrhea, but...
Some people can't drink cow's milk, they'll drink goat's milk. Some prefer sheep's milk to goat's milk. Nutrition, yeah, I always feel like it's a slippery slope, which is why we don't preach too much about nutrition on this channel. I think it's very personalized and very specific to individuals.
Yeah.
So really find out what works best for you. Now, if you're asking market-wise, as a small scale homestead, I would say if you're breeding a cow, go for A2 genes. Just because in the homestead market, those sell for much more and much easier than like an A1, A2.
Same if you're going to be doing a small scale dairy where you sell dairy shares, herd shares.
Find your niche.
If you're trying to sell herd shares and you're going to be asking the money you need to run a small scale dairy, you're going to be expensive. And the people out there who are willing to pay lots of money for your expensive milk are the people who are looking to get that very rare A2 milk, which they personally believe is better for them. And whether or not you think it's better for them, if your customers want it, then it's better for you to have that and not the thing they don't want. So we chose an A2 cow, and the question, is it different from sheep's milk and goat's milk?
That's, well, you know, you're going into taste for that.
I think he meant with the A2 milk.
Yeah, no, the sheep's milk and goat's milk is supposedly easily digested as well. It's A2 milk.
Sheep and goat's milk I thought was all A2.
Yeah.
Right. So did you say what A2 means for those people who don't know what we're talking about?
Yes, it's a protein that could be more easily digested by people that's in the milk.
Okay, so there's that. There's
Without getting way deep into it.
Yeah.
That's just a very general explanation of it all.
There's lots of people looking for that kind of milk. Whether or not it's better for you or anybody else, we're not saying yes or no to that. And we're also not saying like, because the people who, this one is a lot of us like preemptively defending all the comments we're going to get. But there are people who think, well, if A2 isn't better, then you're just taking advantage of people by selling them more expensive milk. No, if people want a green car and you sell them a green car, you're just giving them what they want. So if they want A2 milk, it is scientifically different than A1 milk. They want A2 milk, you're getting them what they want. Whether or not it's better for them, as long as you don't advertise it as the best milk for your digestional tract. You're giving your customer what they want, and trust me, you will have more customers if you have A2 milk and A2 animals. So that's why we do the A2
go
thing.
milk some sheep. That is something I've been wanting to get in for years now, is dairy sheep.
Candace, I didn't even put her question up, but she wanted to know if we...
Oh yeah, I totally was in contact with a woman when we lived in Connecticut who lived in the Northeast who does dairy sheep. Because we hadn't got a cow yet, and the goat's milk I just didn't care for the taste of, but the sheep's milk is good. So
have you tasted it?
it's delicious.
Really? You tasted it?
Yeah, sheep's milk.
I've never tasted it. Candace asked. I didn't even include it. It's bonus, Candace. You got a question in that I deleted because I didn't think you'd ever tasted it.
Now I'm trying to remember where I tasted it.
All right. Well, I've never tasted it. She has. She likes it.
I would love to get dairy sheep.
Maybe at a fair.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Anyway.
But yes.
So, and then...
So you'll hear us answer questions like this when it comes to nutrition. I don't think there's black and whites out there.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if you eat a diet of fried foods all the time, you're not going to feel or be healthy.
We always say we approach nutrition and what we eat in our diet kind of like just moderation.
Like my grandma always said, everything in moderation.
And if it hurts your belly when you eat it, then don't eat it. And if it doesn't hurt mine, then shut up when I eat it and let me eat my delicious ice cream. Like, don't tell me it's bad for me because I love ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, I love ice cream.
All right, another hot topic. Speaking of nutrition, we get into goat nutrition. Saprina Moose asks, I'm wondering about the goats.
I always say Saprina.
Saprina.
Who's right?
Let us know.
Saprina, let us know.
I'm wondering about the goats and their feed. I've seen other homesteaders with goats who feed them supplements all year. I know they get plenty of browse during most of the year. I've only seen you feed them hay so far. Do you give them supplements we don't see? If so, what kinds and how much? Do you give them supplements during the rest of the year? By supplements, I think you mean like a grain.
Or a mineral.
Or a mineral.
So yes to both.
They do have free choice access to a loose mineral all year round. It's in their stall. And as far as grain, we do feed them grain as well. Lacey, when we brought her down here, she was losing a lot of weight. So we needed to grain her to keep her weight up.
When we first got Lacey, she was overweight.
She was chubby.
She was a chubs. And she also had a weird eye thing going on.
Well, that cleared up though. They gave her medicine for that.
And when we moved her down here...
She lost weight because she was with the other goats in the fields.
Right.
Just eating browse and stuff like that.
So then when we... Oh, and then when we got her back, actually, she got the worms too.
Yeah, and
so we had the worm issue and she was getting too skinny. So Lacey, it's been a real slim fast situation.
Well, she had a big change. You know, she came from in a commercial dairy operation with all that food.
Oh yeah, not a lot of moving around.
No, up to the country with all the herd of goats where she had
wild
to
and
fight for her
weeds.
food. Yeah.
And so we've kind of got her leveled off now with a regular
dairy goat ration.
Dairy goat feed. And this is something we talk about a lot. When you get animals don't try to like hack their feed if you don't know what you're doing.
Because it's just so much to figure out.
Just if you just go to the store and you buy a dairy goat ration, and there are better quality feeds out there, so you know, if you want to look for a good quality feed versus a less quality, but you probably don't know more than the feed guy does about feeding goats, so you're generally safer.
Especially if you're new at it.
Yeah, and we've always, with our animals, we found a good ration, a good quality feed.
Good hay, good grain, and a good free choice mineral.
Our old hay farmer, we'd call him up back in Connecticut, we'd say, hey, we need hay. And he'd ask us, what for? And back when we just had goats, we'd say goats, and he goes, you can feed them garbage. But we always chose to just
not true.
Get them good quality.
No, especially any dairy animal, you really need to feed them.
Yeah.
You need to feed them well. They're giving a lot.
He was a cow. He was
a cow
dairy
guy,
so he just thought goats, like, just feed them some trash, and you got a goat. That's what you're going to get anyway. But get a good quality feed, and then we get the specific goat mineral. And the hay is good quality hay, and that.
It will also regularly, there are multi-mineral vaccines or shots you can give them, just a good boost of minerals. We'll do that before kidding, and it should take care of everything.
And side note, we have Quinn here right now. Quinn's getting a different feed because he's used to a different feed. So
spoiled.
Yeah, he's a little spoiled. Valerie, who we got Quinn from, who we're leasing, we have him here for a couple months. He's used to the feed he's used to, and so he's getting that feed, and our girls are getting the feed they're used to. So we have two different goat feeds right now.
They all like each other's food, though. So.
Yeah, they're trying to fight. Hey, let me get a bite of them. It's like school lunches. You send your kid with your school lunch, and then they're trading it, right? I'll give you my PB&J for your Lunchables.
Ooh.
Yeah, Lunchables.
Not enchilada.
I was always jealous of Lunchables. I never got Lunchables.
Sad.
What a bad parent I had. They never sent me with Lunchables. No. I'm kidding, Mom. I'm glad you didn't send me with Lunchables. No judgment on Lunchables. Ah, defend. Ah. Comments below. We're gonna cry all weekend when people yell at us for what we said wrong. If you like Ask Homesteady, the fact that we take time out of our week every week to answer your questions, you can support our show in 2 ways. Become a Homesteady Pioneer, link below for that. $5 a month, comes out to 25 cents per episode, and really is the only way we're able to produce this show. And if you shop on Amazon, type in www.amsteady.com first, or click on the link we have below. We'll get a bonus for sending you there. And don't use your credit card when shopping on Amazon. Use a debit card. Somebody asked me, how can I shop through Homesteady if I only have a credit card? Or if I can't use a credit card? You'll use your debit card. Sign up, debit card.
They're making us feel bad.
Yeah, use a debit card.
We're all works in progress,
That's
right?
it.
Just work in progress.
I'll let her lead this out. She's more tact. More class, but less stash.